man. Oh, listen, I ran into a pole today and I hurt my knee. But what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and look at what we have here. 2XO, the second release. This is the Innkeeper's blend coming to you by Dixon Dedman. If you don't know who that man is by now, you should learn a little bit more about him by checking out my first video on this. I'll put that above. But this is 2XO, the Innkeeper's blend, coming at 104 proof. Let's try this out, but everybody knows before we get started on all of that, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. Hospitality. You ever have one of those weeks where it's only Monday, but it feels like Friday? I've had 3 days of rain, and in the ice cream industry, that is not very fun. This is 2XO by Dixon Dedman, the Innkeeper's blend. This is the second release in the ongoing small batch blend series from 2XO. We have the Phoenix batch, and maybe we'll do both of them side by side later this week. Each release is unique, created by blending select stocks from my finest barrels and crafted using my double barreling process. That's when they take it out of the original barrel, put it in a second barrel for an undisclosed amount of time on both of those barrelings, actually. I don't know how old this is originally, let alone how long it's aged for, but this is double oaked, and we're actually going to do a double oaking video. We'll put all the best double oak stuff together. People are saying that Jim Beam double oaked is better than something like 1910. We're going to put them all out there. This will definitely be one. If it beats the Phoenix blend, we'll obviously pick the better of the two compared to our palate. But let's get into this. 104 proof. Let's start with drinkability. It's a little bit hot. It's not a lot of bit hot, but it is a little bit hot. I will say we just opened this. I only had one glass the other night. Now I'm drinking another glass right now, but I will say there's a little bit of heat behind this. I think that age really brings out a little bit of heat. I think this is definitely a lot older. At least it tastes a lot older. I shouldn't say that it is a lot older. They're probably the same age between the Phoenix blend and this blend, but it does seem like the characteristics I'm getting from this seem to be older characteristics. That being said, for 104 proof, it is my second glass of whiskey for tonight. I think it drinks a little bit hot, but I'm not going to say it's overwhelming. Let's take one more sip. See, for drinkability, we give it an 8.0 if it falls right at its proof. If I were to blind this and say it's 104 proof, I would give it an 8.0. If I were to blind this, I might put it at like that 110 to 112 range, which is definitely a little bit higher. So we're going to drop this a little bit below an 8. It's so hard to call though. See, this is where things get tough. Obviously, the more and more I drink this, the easier it becomes to drink because it kind of acclimates a little bit better to my palate. I will say I think it drinks a little bit hot. I think it drank a little bit hotter on my first two sips than it did on the third. This one's starting to mellow out a little bit. Let's drop it right below an 8 at like a 7.94 when it comes to drinkability on this. And as you may or may not know, that's going to get us into taste on this glass next. I think that's where this bottle truly shines. If you go on 2XO's website, they're going to tell you the taste profile is vanilla, caramel, a little bit of cherry, ending with a peppery spice, and that's exactly what I get on this. No exuberant flavor profiles, no grandma's pecan pie from 1942 when she put it on the windowsill and you were riding by on your bike with freshly mowed grass. This is exactly what you get. You get caramel, vanilla, a little bit of cherry, and then it ends with a peppery spice, and I love it. It's so well balanced. It's so well done. But I will say the oaky characteristics from that double oak stand out on this bottle, I think a little bit more than they did on the Phoenix blend, although one day we are going to try those side by side. This glass is just a little bit darker, right? Now, normally I don't like that flavor profile when it's overdone. This glass right here, though, seems to get it perfect. It gives you enough of those tannins, those oaks, to not overwhelm your palate, to not overtake the glass, but still give you some of that cherry, that vanilla, that caramel, that sweetness to really balance this out. And then that spiciness on the end is the perfect roller coaster ride that we always talk about, versus something that's super bright, that's super floral, super maraschino cherry forward. This glass isn't that, but it's still delicious. I love this glass. One more sip, then we'll give it a score when it comes to taste. You know, it continues to amaze me that I can go out and find different bottles of bourbon from different blenders or different distilleries or different distillers in general and still fall in love with a very similar and yet at the same time very different flavor profile. I know it's kind of a weird concept to think of, but something like Russell's Reserve Single Barrels is on my all-time top of the top list, and yet this bottle right here, taste-wise, is exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to taste. It gives me all the vanillas, the caramels, the sweetness I want on the front. It gives me a little bit of the spiciness on the end, and in the middle, it's just the perfect balance of oak and tannins. I love this glass right here. We might put it in the 9s. It's going to be close, though. I'm going to pour up a little bit more because that's the only way we're going to find out. The other crazy part is 2 years ago, I would have not liked this glass at all. And that's why we've kind of rearranged things here on Bourbon of the Week. Rather than doing a running list of every bourbon I've ever drank every year after every year, I've started to hone in on annual lists because I think it's important to realize that your palate changes, your tastes change, and what you like and what you don't like changes. And 2XO, 2 times oaked, not just on this particular bottle right here, but in general, twice barreled stuff seems to be going up and up and up on my list. This glass right here, we got to go 9s. I'm going 9.2, 9.31 when it comes to this glass right here. And last but not least, that's going to get us in a price on this bottle. And this bottle comes in at $99.99. But I want to tell you something on the back of this bottle. It says produced and bottled by Prestige Beverage Group in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, the only way that a bottle can leave off distilled by and tell you who it's distilled by is if it's distilled in the same state that it's produced in, which means this is distilled in Kentucky. That's important because if you walk in and you see this bottle sitting on your shelf for $100, you don't know who Dixon Dedman is, you don't know anything about 2XO, and you don't know who distilled it because you're looking for that because you read a Reddit article one time that tells you to see who it's distilled by, you might not want to pick this bottle up for $100, but I gotta tell you, it's a pretty fair price if you ask me. That being said, we always like to compare it to other bottles in that price range, and one of them that I always like to bring up in that $100 price range is Jim Beam's Booker's, because I do love that bottle. But I will say, people are upset about Booker's because it used to be $60, then it was $75, now it's $95, and it's definitely a tough ask for a bottle of whiskey. We've just done a bunch of stuff, including Maker's Mark, Barrel, Bardstown Bourbon Company, putting out multiple releases of different bottles at $70 to $75. So I will say without knowing more about this particular bottle when it comes to age, when it comes to who's distilling it, it's maybe a little bit overpriced, but it's definitely nothing outrageous. Let's take one more sip and we'll give it a score. Listen, if the taste on this bottle wasn't this good, it would definitely get a lower score when it comes to price, but I think with how good this tastes, even with the drinkability being a little bit above average, I will give this a good score when it comes to price. Let's give it like I'm going to say like an 8.13 when it comes to price on this. But hey, while I add these scores up, let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn why they call this the Innkeeper's Blend. Cheers, y'all. So this bottle right here is called the Innkeeper's Blend, and it's not called that by accident. It says right here on the back of the bottle, the Innkeeper's Blend pays homage to the family's long history in hospitality and the values instilled along the way. Never forget your past. Now, if you don't know the Dedman's connection to hospitality, they own the Beaumont Inn in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's my best guess. This inn actually started out in 1845 called Greenville Institute, an all-girls school. In 1855, it was actually taken over by John Augustus Williams, who used to be the president of the University of Kentucky, and they renamed it Daughters College. It ran that way until 1984 when it was purchased and called Beaumont College, Beaumont standing for Beautiful Mount. It ran that way until 1916 when Glaive and Annabelle Goddard actually purchased the school. Annabelle used to attend the school when it was called Daughters College, so she kind of had an attachment to it. Much like her coming back to the school, she recognized a lot of other alumni were coming back as well, decides to turn it into an inn. Fast forward 100 years later, the Dedman family, who are descendants of the Goddard family, now own and run this, and that's why we have 2XO, the Innkeeper's Blend, paying homage to all of this history at the Beaumont Inn. Now, there are crazy stories with the history behind this inn, including Franklin D. Roosevelt visiting and borrowing a chair from that particular inn. I will link those in the description below, so make sure you check them out. But let's get back to our total score here and let you know how this bottle did. Listen, if you've made it this far in the video, make sure you click that like and that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. This bottle came in at an 8.46, and it surprised me. I thought it was good. I knew it was great, but I didn't know it would top our list here in 2023. I think it deserves to be up there, though. It's not quite that high above Maker's Mark BEP, but it is at the top of the list for right now. Let me know in the comment section below if you've had this bottle and how you feel about it. But in the meantime, make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Go click that follow button over there. We're almost at 10,000 followers on Instagram, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Make sure you check the links in the description below to our Patreon as well as our Discord. You can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month and have some amazing behind the scenes footage as well as some perks for Patreons only. And check out our Discord. You can join that for free. In the meantime, please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy. Stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. Hospitality.